China Kites began it. Swift fictioned it. Wells imagined it. Austria initiated it. Our Civil War solidified it. Billy Mitchell predicted it. Churchill fooled Hitler with it. The U.S. nuked Japan with it. In Korea, Soviets outclassed us with it. During the Cold War, we spied on it. In Vietnam, we lied about it. In the Mideast, we slew with it. And yet again, the siren song of easy wins from the air titillates Trump and masturbates MAGA, deflating his no more made-up Mideast war declaration, even as he spoke the words. But down through the ages, from Centurion to Special Forces, we soldiers know the terrible truth. Wars are won only and always by boots on the ground, by grit and gore in the blood and mud. But Machiavellian mission creep begins in and is as empty as the air. Ex-DEA and DIA, retired SOCOM soldier, deep state targeted, turned whistleblower warrior, sabotaged and slandered, betrayed and saved, rejected and redeemed, as teacher and truth teller, now America's intelligence officer, resisting tyranny in obedience to God, welcoming like-minded patriots, training next generations to infill corrupted agencies, and St. Martin them, inside out, bottom up, co-opting conquerors in Christ. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for your prayers and concerns. As you can see, I'm doing a lot better, slowly coming back. Very important show today, entitled Iran, Israel, and America's Strategies Simplified. That's my latest new Substack. This one is paid, so please subscribe. And then also is Trump's Iran War Righteous. That was my Substack and sermon from Sunday. Then Israeli ground troops have invaded Lebanon, extending the war, the Greater Israel War. And America's religious war begins in Austin. U.S. embassies in Iraq, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia attacked. Are we heading towards GWAT 2? Well, we will see. But to start off, remember, go to beready123.com, beready123.com. Get your Iridium 9555 for free with a 24-month contract. This is mine, one of mine. Certainly with false flags on the horizon by the deep state to blame Iran, comms are likely to go out. So now's the time. Use Prather code Prather for 10% off. The promo code is Prather for 10% off at beready123.com or sat123.com. So this is Iran, Israel, and America's Strategies Simplified, to cut through all the chatter. And I'm putting back on my military intelligence hat, except I'm now America's intelligence officer, telling you rather than the government, because they never listen anyway. So the military center of gravity for this war, as in all wars, those on the battleground. The source of this war is Israel's goal of achieving an eventual greater Israel. That is the political and ideological concept advocating for the expansion of Israeli sovereignty beyond its current borders, rooted in biblical, historical, and nationalist claims. The term refers to a vision of Jewish state stretching from the Nile River in Egypt to the Euphrates River in Syria and Iraq, a boundary derived from passages in the Hebrew Bible at Genesis 15:18. This requires, among other things, the destruction of Iran. That is Israel's goal. Netanyahu is aware that American Christian Zionism is waning. Charlie Kirk was the example that American Christians are finally waking up to the Schofield Bible's heresies. Netanyahu knows that he will never have more opportunity to pursue greater Israel than now with Trump. U.S.-Iran negotiations were designed to fail from the beginning. the U.S. would accept nothing less than Iran's total disarmament. Once that was achieved, Israel, of course, would then attack Iran, as it has always done, destroying it as a nation state. Israel knew this, and while agreeing too much, could never agree to that. The American strategic goal is regime change, the decapitation of Iranian leadership by the assassination of the supreme leader Khamenei and his family and 48 key leaders, along with POTUS's exhortation to the Iranian people to rise up and throw off their highly unpopular theocratic government, is evidence of this. Of course, Khamenei was the one who issued a fatwa against Iran having a nuclear weapon. The new leader is much more of a hardliner, expects nuclear weapons, as the CIA predicted, but we'll get to that. U.S. military doctrine builds on a phased escalation ladder from coercion to paralysis to political outcome. Phase 1, shock, leadership targeting nuclear missile suppression and psychological dominance. Phase 2, systemic paralysis, aiming at air defense destruction, IRGC command centers, disruption and economic isolation, and escalation. Phase 3, political outcome, with the strategic objective of internal collapse and negotiated capitulation. The problem is that these military phases ensure no political resolution. The Iranian strategy, on the other hand, is to outlast the Americans and Israelis. They know America does not want this war, and the Israeli war resources are limited. Without American support for Israel, they cannot sustain, much less win, wartime operations. They plan to make the war too long and too expensive for America and Israel to endure. This is why Iran launched retaliatory missile and drone strikes against 6 nations following coordinated U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iranian targets on February 28th, 2026. The countries targeted were Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, all of which host U.S. military bases. Now, what's new today is Qatar has attacked Iran. Saudi Arabia is talking about it, but Saudi Arabia is a paper force. Will make no difference. But Iran also attacked regional civilian airports, causing massive flight reroutes, which is why the State Department is saying for the United States citizens to get out of so many countries. The strikes, combined with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, are economic warfare designed to make America's cost of the war in terms of the global economy and the price of petroleum unsustainable. And of course, they already know the war is unpopular. It become less popular as the price of oil and gas goes up and all the things that are made from petroleum, from nylon to plastics. So far, this strategy has backfired spectacularly. While these Muslim nations are not allowing offensive U.S. air operations from their countries that have U.S. bases, having been struck anyway, they may now change their mind. As I said, Qatar has now entered offensive operations against Iran. With Iranian Central Command decapitated, Iran has publicly accepted the activation of its decentralized Mosaic defense doctrine. That means individual Iranian Revolutionary Guard units are free to act on their own. This is exactly what I and 2 other military intelligence branch officers with Special Forces service warned about in the Second Gulf War when we were activated for that. Instead of tens of thousands of Iraqis emerging with their rifles over their heads, as in the first Gulf War, in response to a spectacularly successful PSYOP leaflet campaign, the soldiers melted into the landscape, waging fourth-generation guerrilla war. Though we alerted the DNI, we were DIA, so it wasn't difficult to do so, the Bush administration did not want to raise the specter of Vietnam's guerrilla warfare. The loss of American blood and treasure was catastrophic. It was not until General Petraeus adopted the tactics of Special Forces Major Jim Gant to the Iraq debacle. Gant was a highly decorated and controversial Army officer, Special Forces branch, known for his unconventional counterinsurgency tactics in Afghanistan and his pivotal role in shaping Village Stability Operations, VSO. 22-year veteran of Special Forces, Gant served in both the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, earning the Silver Star for Valor in Iraq in 2007. He gained national attention in 2009 with his influential paper, One Tribe at a Time, which proposed a bottom-up strategy of embedding small U.S. teams with Pashtun tribes to build trust, train local militias, and counter the Taliban, bypassing a core central government, basically making conventional troops special forces. His approach earned him high praise from the top military leaders, including General Petraeus, who called him the perfect counterinsurgent. Grant lived among Afghan tribes in Kunar province, dressing in local clothing, growing a beard, speaking Pashto. If you wonder where all this started with the beards and everything, well, it started with the horse soldiers, but it became institutionalized under Gant, earning him the nickname Lawrence of Afghanistan. His methods proved effective, with tribes offering critical intelligence and loyalty. His story was chronicled in the book American Spartan, The Promise, the Mission, and Betrayal of Special Forces Major Jim Gant, by his wife, former Washington Post reporter Ann Scott Dyson, whom he met during his deployments and later married in 2013. Despite his successes, Gant's career ended in 2012 after a junior officer reported multiple infractions, including alcohol use, unauthorized possession of classified materials, failure to wear body armor, and housing his civilian spouse, a violation of military regulations. Basically, he was set up. He was demoted to captain and forced into early retirement, stripped of his Special Forces tab. His story remains a subject of debate. A visionary tactician whose unorthodox methods clashed with the military bureaucracy, and a cautionary tale about the cost of challenging the status quo, which, of course, is something I'm intimately familiar with. The military center of gravity in this war, as in all wars, is those on the battleground, that is, the Iranian battleground. Both pro and anti-regime groups are protesting in Iran. The rally around the flag phenomenon will work against regime change. Also, the government has the guns still. Iranian protests against the government are huge and numerous, but to date, they remain spontaneous and uncoordinated. Mossad's on the ground, inside Iran, human infiltration is tremendous and amazing, and yes, they are on the ground. The stuff of legends. CIA ground branch and British SAS may also be in country. But turning student protesters into armed, organized guerrilla fighters that can outfight the IRGC and overthrow the regime is something else entirely. Such an effort requires unification. Such unification requires a leader. And so far, no indigenous Iranian leader has emerged. Boots on the ground win wars, always. Israel will never commit ground troops. Hopefully, neither will America. Unlike in Iraq, VSO is not an option. That means the boots must be the Iranian protesters themselves, and they must be led by a local. This is the Iran war's center of gravity. Can the IRGC keep control and outlast America's air war and Israel's sponsored guerrilla war? A review of Iraq and Venezuela will clarify. The U.S. has seized Venezuelan oil shipments and conducted maritime interdictions, including lethal strikes on vessels linked to designated terrorist organizations. Trump also announced that the U.S. has received over 80 million barrels of Venezuelan oil, following a $500 million sale, sparking interest from many American energy firms. Despite the political shift, tensions persist. Protests have erupted in Caracas, particularly by students demanding full political freedom. In short, even though Maduro's vice president is now in charge, there has been no real political change on the ground with the people in Venezuela. Venezuela is by no means Iraq, rather Iran. It is much smaller and less powerful. But if Venezuela was preparation for Iran, then the results do not bode well for U.S. regime change efforts in Iran. Iraqi sects are now attacking the U.S. Embassy. Also in Pakistan, after 20 years of GWAT, Iraq is fighting American troops again. It's the Marines at the embassy. Iran is much older than Iraq and 4 times bigger. And for that matter, much older than America too. If Iraq is any indicator, the odds of America winning are at best even. And that is my new Substack. I see somebody on Earl Jackson, perfidy, killing, injuring, or capturing by feigning an intent to negotiate a flag of truce with intent to betray. That coincidence is illegal. Very true. And the negotiators were never sincere, as I mentioned. Aroma Doc, thanks for the donation. Says, God bless you. Thank you for your valuable intel. I'm glad you have a Rumble rant to help you get some support for your relentless work, showing up with truth and wisdom. Wow, another donation. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Aroma Doc, I've been watching your cast since the pandemic started. I rarely get to watch it live when I'm working. Watching live today, I say thank you. I've been praying for your full recovery. Thank you so much. Also, please keep in mind my longtime student, Carlos Reyes, who needs a triple transplant. He started in my dojo when I was 15. He's about 32 now. He's gotten his double transplant, which is a miracle. We've been praying for him in ChristChaplaincy.com. And he's a tough kid. And yes, I am starting to get better. So, is Trump's Iran war righteous? America has just launched Epic Fury in response to Israel's roaring lion, but is it justified? America is at war with Iran again. Many Jewish and American Christian Zionists are thrilled, but most of America is against it. Many Iranians are celebrating. As I have long said, Persians are long sick of the Iranian theocracy and ready for Coca-Cola, jeans, and rock and roll. But what standard should we judge this war? And Persia only makes up half of Iran. Iran is really Aryan. There's the Kurds. There's lots of other groups there as well. Again, as a chaplaincy, ChristChaplaincy.com, we commit to providing spiritual aid and comfort to those in the real world, including those on the physical battlefield. Therefore, we have a clear duty to discern as Christians whether the conflict is righteous or not. This does not affect how we render spiritual aid. We should pray for the combatants and civilian casualties, ours and theirs. But we should be clear on where we stand. And where we stand as Christians should be determined through a Christic lens. Israel initiated war on Iran on Shabbat, just before Purim. This is spiritually significant and no coincidence. Attacking during the Sabbath and pre-Purim gave the advantage of deception. On Sunday, it was the fast of Esther. On Monday, it was Purim. Purim is a Jewish holiday commemorating the salvation of the Jewish people in ancient Persia, which is now Iran, from a plot to annihilate them, as recounted in the book of Esther. The story centers on Queen Esther, a Jewish woman who secretly reveals her identity to King Ahasuerus, which is probably Xerxes, to thwart the evil plans of Haman, the king's prime minister, who sought to exterminate all the Jews. Esther, with the help of her cousin Mordecai, risks her life to intercede, leading to Haman's downfall and the Jewish people's deliverance. But it is more than that in Israel. And this is my Substack from Sunday. This one is free. And there's a reference where you can listen to this rabbi on X, where a contemporary rabbi extremist explains the Jews have a sacred duty to kill enemies of the Jewish people, i.e. Amalekites, including women and children in all times and places. The reason being, they are the offspring of the fallen angels and the daughters of man. He also explains that Jews are reminded of their duty during Purim. Purim is not merely a historical relic. Rather, it continues to be celebrated and contributes to Israel's notorious Jewish culture of extreme hate and violence towards Arabs, Muslims, and Christians. Purim is currently happening, and Israeli Jews are using Purim to call for the extermination of not only the Palestinians, but now also the Iranians. And of course, there is no biblical scriptural evidence that these are Amalekites that are the offspring of fallen angels. Is there any way to align this Jewish doctrine with our Christian faith? Of course not. And this is, by the way, many reject the term Judeo-Christian in reference to America's historical faith. I say Mosaic Christic. Before going any further, I want to be clear that I have never misinterpreted Scripture that all Christ followers must be pacifists. Although all early Christians were, by necessity, pacifists, the mighty Roman Empire allowed for no other strategy. The misconception of Christ as a pacifist is based upon a misinterpretation of Yeshua's own words in Matthew 26:52. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. This means that those who rely on violence or aggression to achieve their goals will ultimately face a violent end. The phrase originates from Matthew 26:52, where Yeshua tells Kepa, or Jesus tells Peter, to put his sword away after Peter cuts off the ear of the high priest servant during Yeshua's arrest. This statement underscores a core biblical principle: violence begets violence. But Yeshua also said, go by swords, in Luke 22:36. He is clearly not anti-weapon. He also praises the Roman centurion, the actual oppressor and enemy, for his faith. In Matthew 8:10 and Luke 7:9, Jesus declares, I have not found such great faith, no, not in Israel, highlighting the centurion's faith in Yeshua, despite being a Roman military officer and Gentile. This was unparalleled among the Jewish people. And of course, this is when the centurion said, you don't have to come to my house. I'm a man under authority. If I tell my soldiers to do something, it's done. All you have to do is say it's done, and it is done. And Yeshua marveled at this. and said, "It is done." And finally, of course, Yeshua himself employs physical violence with a weapon at the temple. And he made for himself a whip of rope and cast them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the lambs and the money exchangers, and he poured out their money and overturned their tables in John 2:15. Interesting note there is, they don't actually say, Scripture doesn't actually say that he used the quirt on anyone. Seems to be implied, but the point is he had a weapon and he did use violence. Yeshua has clearly declared and demonstrated that there are appropriate times for righteous anger and violence. So the question before us now is this new war initiated by Israel and followed by America a righteous war? As a proud, retired American soldier, a veteran of foreign wars, a lifetime martial artist, and a decades-long firearms instructor, I am an expert and proponent of violence, but only appropriate violence. Appropriate as defined by Christic values. When I was called back to active duty during the Second Gulf War in 2003, I went. But I did not have a full picture for the justification for the war then. Later, we learned that the reason for going into Iraq were completely false. And even earlier, prior to the Panama invasion, I requested a delay from attending military intelligence officers advanced course to go to war with my unit, 7th Special Forces Group. But my faith then is not what it is today. Today, my view of war, as my view of life in all aspects, orients from a not simply biblical perspective, but a Christic context. In Christic context, there are only two reasons to take life: to provide life, as in hunting and harvesting, Genesis 3:21, and the Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife, and he clothed them. Obviously, if he made buckskins, he killed the animal. And to protect life, as in self-defense. According to Exodus 2:11, Moses, now an adult and aware of his Hebrew identity, saw an Egyptian taskmaster striking a Hebrew man, so he slew the taskmaster. So, now let's take a look at this new war. This is a war initiated by Israel. Is it in self-defense? No, clearly not. Netanyahu has claimed for years that Iran was developing nuclear weapons, even though Trump's own chief intelligence officer, director of national intelligence, Gabbard, has denied this. Trump also falsely claimed that Iran has missiles that can reach the United States and that Iran posed an imminent threat to America. The motive for Israel is clear. The aim is to achieve the dream of Greater Israel, all the land promised by God to the Jews in the Torah, Genesis 15:18, which states, "To your descendants I will give this land from the Wadi of Egypt to the greater river, the Euphrates." Again, this defines a vast territory stretching from the Nile River in Egypt to the Euphrates River in modern-day Iraq, encompassing much of the present-day Middle East. And of course, this would affect many modern Muslim nations. They would have to be eliminated. The Purim timing indicates an obsession with ancient revenge blood debts. While championed by Israeli, Jewish, and American Christian Zionists, this is completely opposite to Yeshua's teaching. Matthew 5:44, "But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." This teaching challenges the common belief of love your neighbor and hate your enemy, and reveals the true heart of God's love. There's also the quote, "I desire mercy and not sacrifice." Then there is Matthew 18:21, where Yeshua calls for unlimited, boundless forgiveness. Peter asks Yeshua how many times one must forgive, and Yeshua replies, 70 times 7, emphasizing that forgiveness should have no limits. This doctrine is the foundation of Western civilization, allowing enemies to move past generational blood feuds and build societies. Jewish and American Christian Zionists who misinterpret and malign Holy Scripture celebrate the phrase, I will bless those who bless Israel, but this phrase is found nowhere in Holy Scripture. Genesis 12:3 actually reads, where God says to Abraham, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you, and in you all families of the earth shall be blessed. This promise was made to Abraham, not to the modern nation state of Israel, which of course didn't exist. But most importantly, the name Israel doesn't appear in the verse. This is Schofield's Bible changing of Holy Scripture. The rally around the flag phenomena will take effect with many patriotic Americans, and ever-Trumpers will support him no matter what he does, because their belief in Trump coming after evil Biden exceeds their faith in God as a sort of earthly Messiah. He's already considered such in Israel. Our belief in Trump, America, or Israel, what is popular or not, should never exceed our faith in Christ. To be clear, I'm not addressing the feasibility of regime change. I just addressed that in my first Substack, nor the legitimacy of the Iranian theocracy, but how we as Christ followers establish real standards to live and, if need, die by in the gray and murky world of war and politics. And I'll pause there to take a look at comments again on Rumble. Tonuk says this distraction of the Epstein files. I don't think so. I think the Epstein files is the line in the sand the hill must die on. It's very important. Please like, share, and subscribe. I am very much throttled on Rumble, X, Facebook, and YouTube. Yes, I'm back on YouTube as well, but please get this message out because they certainly don't want this message out. So Israel has opened a second front on day 4 of Trump's Iran war. Israel and U.S. forces pressed forward with their assault on Iran, striking targets across the country, including Iran's state broadcaster and central military command centers, as the official death toll has climbed to 787 Iranians killed since the beginning of Epic Fury, and we now have 6 service members killed in action. Fears that this could open it to a broader multi-front war appear to be becoming a reality. At the same time, Israel escalated operations on a second front, intensifying airstrikes on Lebanon and launching a new ground offensive into the south. Beirut is once again under Israeli bombs after Israel accused the Hezbollah of firing rockets on the north. Israeli ground troops have entered southern Lebanon in a new military operation, according to multiple reports, as of March 3rd. The Israeli military confirmed it deployed forces deeper into southern Lebanon. Defense Minister Israel Katz stated that he and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu authorized the operation to advance and hold additional dominant terrain in Lebanon. By the way, Netanyahu has fled to Germany, and Netanyahu's kids are in Florida, certainly not serving. Hezbollah has responded defiantly, with senior official Mohammed Kamadi declaring Israel wanted open war, so let it be open war. The group claims it has no choice but to return to resistance. Lebanese military forces have repositioned away from the border for safety, with reports indicating withdrawal from at least 7 forward positions. The UN peacekeeping force observed Israeli troops crossing into Lebanon in several areas before some withdrew back south of the Blue Line. The current incursion follows a previous 2024 Israel invasion that ended with the U.S. and France brokered ceasefire in November 2024, requiring Hezbollah to move its forces north of the Litani River and Israel to withdraw, although Israel maintained control over the 5 border points. As always, Israel is pushing and breaking the peace. Remember, last year in Qatar, they actually killed the Gazan negotiators team. Earl Jackson says Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson says he's had intel that Netanyahu is flying to meet Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Obviously, he's going to push for more war and push this as far as he can because he is never going to have as much American Christian Zionist support as he does with Trump, although I'd say Trump is the first Jewish president. Hi, Cropman. Glad you're feeling better, Jeffrey. I'm getting there. Trying hard. I'm doing all kinds of breathing treatments. Wonderful wife's taking great care of me. But the deep state's American religious war between Christians, Muslims, and Jews is now beginning. The FBI is probing Iran-related terrorism in the Austin shooting. And so remember that on Sunday, 3 victims were killed, 13 wounded. Just one day after the United States and Israel launched the military strikes against Iran, the violence erupted around 1:40 a.m. on Sunday outside Buford's Backyard Beer Garden, a popular destination for college students in Austin's West 6th Street area. According to Austin Police Chief Lisa Davis, the suspect, 50-year-old Najati Digagame, circled the block several times in a large SUV before opening fire from his vehicle with a pistol. He then parked the SUV, exited with a rifle, and continued firing at patrons. While a formal motive has not been found, investigators found many clear indicators suggesting a link to international tensions, specifically the ongoing Iran-U.S. conflict. The suspect's residence had an Iranian flag, Quran, and photographs of Iranian regime leaders. He was originally from West Africa and moved to Austin after living in New York. He was originally from Senegal, which is a Muslim country in Africa, practicing Sunni Islam beliefs. When he was killed by police, he was wearing a Property of Allah hoodie, and underneath that, he had an Iranian flag t-shirt. So in case it wasn't obvious enough, the killer was wearing a Property of Allah hoodie and an Iranian flag t-shirt underneath. But recall who imported and allowed the killer into the United States. The deep state Praetorian Guard puppet masters government. They create the problem and then blame it. And of course, American Christian Zionists are freaking about the Islamification of America, which is a problem, but the Zionization of America is really already complete. So this is the deep state's religious war in America kicking off in Austin. Earl Jackson says, Colonel Douglas McGregor, who's been on the show, by the way, he's been on the Prather Point, thinks once we run out of ammunition, Israel will attempt to use a nuke, and that will drag Russia and China into the mix. There's a lot of talk about nuclear weapons. Tucker Carlson was making the allegations that Iran didn't bomb the Saudi oil refineries. It was actually Mossad. He's talked about Mossad being arrested, Mossad agents being arrested in several countries because they want the greater Israel war to expand while they blame it on Iran. And of course, this is exactly what they did with 9/11. It's exactly what they did with October 7th. So while it is unproven, the intelligence information certainly indicates that. But do I have evidence of that? No, I do not. But it certainly fits Israeli Mossad behavior. Further, U.S. embassies in Iraq, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia attacked. Now, again, this may be a Mossad false flag, but recent attacks on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad occurred following the death of Iran's supreme leader, Khamenei. And again, Khamenei was the one who'd issued a fatwa against having a nuclear weapon. And hundreds of pro-Iranian protesters in Baghdad have attempted to storm the U.S. Embassy, fortified in the green zone. Marines have fired on them as well. And so Pakistan, the U.S. embassies in Pakistan, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia have been attacked. And if you're unaware, that is U.S. soil diplomatically. So that means war is often not taken like that, but that's really what it means. But the import here is that the Iranian war is spreading. And we may be heading towards GWAT 2.0. Tux, I believe the shooting in Austin is a Mossad false flag to drum up support for the war. It's very likely. Very likely. Again, the guy was brought in by the U.S. government, just like the 9/11 pilots, and then vetted and protected by the FBI. Hi, Cropman, I hate to say this, but I hope Iran takes out the government of Israel. Israel is being hit very hard. And Iran is surprising Israeli and American intelligence analysts with their drone swarms, which are proving to be very effective. Aromadoc, worried that this is Iraq war all over again. The people who are watching the Epstein files are getting more upset. Tough-looking biker guys in tears, treading on social media, all the platforms, awakened. This may be the Iraq war again. But again, Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq. And that may be why we've seen Trump moderating his response. It hasn't been a shock and awe response because he only has so many missiles, so many planes, so many tankers. But it could be the drip of terror cells becoming a flow. What is GWAT 2.0? Global War on Terror. I'm not wearing my, this one is for Defense Meritorious, but sometimes you see me wearing my GWAT ribbon there as well. Yes, you guess who, girl, and Walker, I'm hydrating and doing all kinds of stuff. Thank you for your help. Your prayers are most welcome. So the CIA has predicted that Khamenei's replacement will likely be more hardline. This is often what happens when we do regime change. We get someone worse than the last guy. Before the U.S. and Israel launched a war against Iran last Saturday and killed Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the CIA assessed that if the Iranian leader were killed, his rule would likely be replaced by hardline figures from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The report said that the assessment was produced over the past 2 weeks as the U.S. was building up its forces. The New York Times reported that the CIA had been tracking Khamenei for months and knew that he would be at his compound in Tehran meeting senior leadership. Since Khamenei's death, the Iranian government has created a council headed by Ayatollah Reza Rafi to govern the city. It's called an assembly of experts, except Israel just hit the assembly of experts and wiped them out. So what does that mean? That means complete decapitation, and there is no one to negotiate with. And of course, this goes with the plan of regime change. Israel is by far, and Mossad, the most violent government in the world. Hi, Crobin, that would be just. Have heard that Bibi was hit dead Sunday. We're watching a Bobby double. Yes, I have heard that Netanyahu may have been hit. That's why he's not making public appearances. But that is unknown at this time. Meanwhile, the State Department orders Americans to leave 14 countries in the Middle East. The problem is they can't. Why? Because all the airports were hit and the flights have been rerouted. So a lot of Americans are stuck in the Middle East. Could they become hostages? They could. Right now they're in friendly territory, but that could change. The U.S. State Department issued an urgent message to Americans in 14 countries on Monday, telling them to depart now amid escalating military actions in the Middle East. So this again indicates that there's going to be even more war, that the war is spreading. Trump, of course, has said 4 to 5 weeks, but could go months. Mission creep, that sounds like years. Looks like GWAT 2.0. Air travel is drastically disrupted as Iran launches retaliatory strikes. Airspace or airports in Israel, Qatar, Syria, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, the United Arab Republics have been closed, according to the flight tracking sites and government agencies. The 14 countries listed in the advisory are Bahrain, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, United Arab Emirates, and Yemen. Shut down airports in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha, including Dubai International Airport, one of the busiest in the world, serve as critical hubs for travel. And so again, this is back to Iran's philosophy of economic warfare, because the shutting down of these airports and the rerouting of these flights, those are tourist destinations, high-end tourist destinations. And so with the flights being canceled and rerouted, that's costing billions. Combine that with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the hitting of the oil fields, and the global economy is going to begin to feel this very, very quickly. That is their plan. But of course, the strikes have backfired so far, as I have said. What is going on with General Flynn? He is all okay with this regime change attempt. He's not the same anymore. I know General Flynn very well. I'm not a big fan of his analysis, never have been. So I don't really pay much attention to him. Although years ago, when I still had my show on AMP, he did come on and confirm that October 7th was a stand down. But I don't see a lot of breaking analysis from him very often. We are not going to occupy en masse. Nas et al. Says Trump is too smart to ignore the Iraq-Afghan mission creep. Most likely scenario, soft squads to arm and train civilians. I haven't seen any evidence yet of Tier 1 SNUs, special mission units in Iran. Although Mossad, Black Ops may be in there, or are in there, have been admitted to be in there, and SAS in there, and maybe some CIA ground branch. But Mossad's are really the experts at this. They have the there's also the IDF special units that dress as Arabs, which I can't think of their name right now, something with an S. Now, as well, it's regime change for civilians. It's the overall terror threat to the world, but also to free up Hormuz Straits for free trade. Well, yeah, that's the goal, is regime change, without a doubt. Romadoc, no, my brother was 2 tours in Iraq, came afterwards, and he took his own life shortly afterwards. He brought the war home. Prayers for your brother and for you. I've noticed a big difference from the horse soldiers, who everybody came home and they lost no one because they overthrew the Taliban government, which was White Sof doing successful regime change. And then when Black Sof, which is Delta and 6 and some others, were just doing lots of killing operations. There's a big difference between those two as far as I'm concerned. I see a lot more trauma with the Black Stuff kinetic wet work, where the horse soldiers seem to be doing great. You know, they're making bourbon there. Oh, I can't quite see it there today. It's it's right up there. Horse soldier bourbon. That one's signed by Sergeant Vince McKellar. Switching topics, declassified CIA files reveal chilling blueprint to manipulate Americans' minds through covert drugging with vaccines. If you wonder why the government can get away with everything they can, it's because the populace is so dumbed down and drugged up and fattened up, they just don't pay any attention to what is happening. But a newly released CIA document shows that from the CIA's reading room in 2025 details the government's one top secret project, Artichoke, that ran from 1951 to 56, focusing on behavioral control, interrogation techniques, and psychological manipulation. 7-page document titled Special Research for Artichoke, with an attachment labeled Suggested Fields for Special Research. Relative Artichoke outlines proposals to develop chemicals capable of altering human behavior. It discusses drugs designed for both immediate effects like truth serums, long-term influence, potentially administered through food, water, alcohol, or cigarettes. CIA was also looking into methods beyond chemicals, listing hypnosis, sensory deprivation, gases, and other psychological methods for interrogation and behavioral control. Artichoke served as a precursor to CIA's MKUltra, which later broadened mind-altering experience onto a larger scale. And MKUltra is where they were drugging people with LSD, have them doing all kinds of weird stuff. And so this is what I mean when I say the CIA doesn't collect people, it doesn't collect intelligence, it collects people to control them. That's the primary purpose of the deep state intelligence agencies, is not to run intelligence, collect intelligence to defend the country. It is to increase its own control. So that just confirms what we are used to hearing about the government. Do you think Eric is MK Ultra? Eric, I don't know who you mean, Eric who, off the top of my head. But Bill Clinton's CIA needs took care of, like Kennedy was going to do it to them. Kennedy was going to shatter the CIA into a million pieces, as a quote. Oh, Erica. Erica, yes, is most likely a victim of MK Ultra, and she is certainly being manipulated by the Zionists and deep state. Why turned into a big fan of Charlie Kirk after he was killed. I'm certainly no fan of TPUSA, which has gone straight American Christian Zionists, and there's all kinds of subterfuge and money missing as well. But yeah, I think Erica is likely that. No odds at all. Candace is like a dog with a bone, but I think she's doing great research. Candace is doing something really amazing because she has such a big audience. She's really mobilized the public to investigate and really has made the FBI irrelevant because she's doing much more than they are. All they do is cover things up. And of course, I always say, I know, the real FBI heroes. Ed Morales did undercover for me. He was the hero of the Miami gunfight, famous Miami gunfight. If you're a gun guy, you know that. If you haven't seen that show, you should go back and find it. Anyway, James O'Keefe got undercover footage of a senior Department of Justice investigator confirming that there is footage of Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein having sex with underage victims on the plane. Rapes occurred while Bill Clinton was on the plane. And so this is the real truth of the Epstein files and why we've only seen the tip of the iceberg, and that's all we will ever see. Pam Bondi was also caught on camera saying there are tens of thousands of videos and it's all just little kids. And so that's the real truth of it, that we are not being shown much because we would not tolerate it. This is good news because this means we still are, America still has a virtuous populace. And that's what Benjamin Franklin said we require to have a republic. Of course, I say our republic has fallen and we are an empire. Trump's Venezuela and Iraq conquests are evidence of that. This is a failing empire. How come Charlie Kirk could not see Erica's deception? He married her. Well, you must not be familiar with people in love and how people around them try to warn them, because that's very common. And she was a professional actress. We now see, if you're following Candace's stuff, she was nothing like Charlie at all. So that is. So I'm really liking all the interaction. I'll check here again on on X, see if there's any other comments as well. Please like, share, and subscribe to me on X and Rumble. I'm very much throttled back. I would really appreciate the support. If you can, also go to jeffreyprather.com/support the show and donate to the show, or become a patron. That patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather. At the $5 level, you get created news stories. You can actually follow the whole show, what I'm talking about, because I list all the articles I'm talking about. Or at 15, special resources. And at $25 a month, you get daily training videos. That's where my handgun martial arts students and Bujinkan martial arts students train with me regularly online. And then you'll have an opportunity to actually train in person, although I'm not doing much of that anymore. Or you can go to Locals, jeffreyprather.locals.com, and subscribe for $9 a month or $90 a year as well. Nas et al. His murder was coup d'etat, plain and simple. Charlie Kirk found massive laundering in TPOC. Yes, that's true. Ropa, I guess I'm too logical when it comes to love. I married a very good man, looked at his actions and his heart. Actions reveal motives, and you are fortunate. There are very few really good marriages. I am blessed with one of the best ever. My wife really works at that incredibly. So by the grace of God, thanks. Certainly. I'm glad to have such a good conversation with all of you today. I want to, again, encourage you to join me at the chaplaincy, christchaplaincy.com, and subscribe to my Substack, and subscribe to me on X and Rumble as well. And I appreciate all your prayers. My health is improving slowly. And my wonderful wife is doing everything. I just did a breathing treatment before I came on the air. Hi, Cropman. Hope the house is coming along well. House is coming along well. We had a house fire last year, too. And then my daughter broke her foot. My dad died. Rachel's mom died. It's been a heck of a year. The house is coming along really good. We hope to be in there March, April. Right now, we're in our little guest house. My gals are just so resilient. It is amazing. They are truly unstoppable. But the new house looks great. We got the wainscot in, the floors in, the walls are being done, countertops are going in shortly. It's a really beautiful, big, new, safe fireplace. Because if you don't know, the house fire started because of the negligence of contractor who built a new fireplace for me that wasn't safe at all. So Ropo, parents set a good example for their children. That is the truth. And dads are especially important. Little kids need to be with their moms first couple of years. But if there's no dad, that's what father wounds are. And all the people from Freud to Clinton to Obama have father wounds. They had lack of fathers in their life. So I obviously take fatherhood very seriously. That's the genius of the Lord's Prayer, Our Father, Abum Devashmaya, as well. And I have acted as a godfather for many through the dojo and through the chaplaincy as well. My ex did the same to me, divide and conquer in my house. I slaved 10 to 12 hours, shifts 20 days a week, come home to an empty house, my son gone. You're talking about your ex. He's referencing someone else's ex-illegal wife. That was my first marriage too. Yeah. That's the old, in case you don't know, that's the old frog and scorpion joke. Anybody who's ever is a good man who's been involved in a bad marriage, because my first wife was abused by her. Her dad died in front of her, and then her stepdad abused her and her sister. So, she was into lesbianism and man-hating. But it can all be summed up in the scorpion versus frog joke, because you don't know it. Scorpion comes alongside the riverbank and says, "Hey, frog, will you carry me across?" Frog says, no, you're a scorpion. You'll sting me. Scorpion says, but we'd both die then. Frog says, you got a point. Hop on. Frog swimming across the river, about in the middle of the river. Scorpion starts stinging the frog. Frog says, what are you doing? You're stinging me. Now we're both going to die. Scorpion says, I'm a scorpion. All right. Well, that'll wrap up the show for today. Remember, the gun is not the answer. You are. The gun is a tool in a toolbox of tactics, techniques, and practices. Trump is not the answer. God is. Trump is a temporary advocate in a shifting, stormy sea of political power alliances riding the tides. To see the crooked lines of man, find the straight line of biblical truth, an actual biblical truth, not misquotes through Schofield Bible. If you're wildly popular, you are undoubtedly wrong. If you are mocked, made fun of, and mistreated, you're on target. If you're waiting for adulation and praise, join the circus. Ignore your critics. Cherish your friends. Know your chain of command. Delineate your duty. Triage your priorities. God, family, clan, nation, tribe. To become spirit-filled, empty ego. The only real initiation for a warrior is battle. True certification for a soldier is the enemy. It's not about how you comport yourself in victory, but in defeat. It's not how you perform in public, but in private. Be grateful, and you will become grace-filled. Our times here are like waterfall drops. Savor and share the moment, because all too soon and suddenly